Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And once again, the news week does not disappoint. I start out with, when we used to be on terrestrial radio, we did some TV gigs. I thought we were pretty good interviewers, and obviously you've never reached the level of Anderson Cooper, but sometimes you're born on third base and you think you hit a triple. I saw some parts of the Biden town hall. Horrible interview. I know he's biased, but never asked any follow-up questions, like even about oil prices. Well, do you regret getting rid of the Keystone Pipeline? Simple, very sophomoric follow-up questions. Never done. Your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't really a surprise. Biden had the same thing throughout the entire campaign. The media's been throwing him softballs, propping him up. And I mean, now it's getting harder and harder for them to prop him up, but they're still in there pitching, trying to keep him as, oh, this was our guy and, he's good for the country. So, of course, they don't ask him follow-up questions because he can't answer them.
Yeah, I just think it's hysterical. Mr. Cooper, he looks so erudite with his black glasses. And I'm not so sure he's any genius either. But speaking of that interview, there's a part, it goes back to my younger days with Beavis and Butthead when he's through Cornholio. I don't know if you ever watched that. He was actually tightening his fist. I don't know if he was holding an imaginary power cord or something. But, I mean, this guy, it's funny because it does amuse me in my simple life, but it's a little scary. This guy is done. And when we talk about done and liberals turning on liberals, you're finished. What SNL, up till about 2 weeks ago, and their ratings, by the way, are in the toilet like all the other liberal establishments, but they gave him a kind of a pass. Last week, they barbecued him. I think that's, I know it's Saturday Night Live, but liberal media is liberal media. It's all owned by the same multinational conglomerates. I don't know if they're really propping up this Titanic.
Well, again, they have to look at their ratings. They have to look at their own credibility. And I mean, even Terry McAuliffe, the candidate for governor in Virginia, said Biden's numbers are pulling us down. So to a certain extent, everybody is sort of moving away from them. I mean, you'll notice all of the Democratic luminaries have gone down to Virginia. Obama, Biden, Harris. You'll notice none of them appeared together. Nobody wants to appear with Biden.
I agree with that, and it's really funny because, everyone has to have a sense of humor in these trying times. Biden did the McAuliffe rally. I think it was yesterday. And again, it's getting worse and worse. It is funnier and funnier. It's always great to YouTube because it's a gift that never stops giving. But he says, we have to open up and expand, before kindergarten education to open it up to 3 and 4-year-olds. That's what
what pre-K is. Yeah, he has no clue what he's talking about. And if you take a look at Biden's appearances in Virginia, you're not even sure he knows who he's stumping for. He still seems to think that Trump is running against them.
Yeah, I think it's so bad. And again, it's funny and whatever, but I think the serious, and again, we talked about this in a serious note, the culpability of the mainstream media is reprehensible. This guy is not, this is not bias. I know we're more of a right-leaning, show and podcast, but I don't think he even knows what reality is. And He's not pulling the strings. He has no idea. Even at that town hall, he's like, Anderson Cooper actually asked him a relevant question, believe it or not. Why don't you visit the border? He's like, I'm too busy. Too busy. It's like the number one issue. Plus, you've been in Delaware about like half the time.
Right. He's only been in the White House a little over 100 days. in the 200 plus days he's been in office. So, yeah, he doesn't have time to go to the border. And then he also followed up with, oh, I've been to the border. I know it well. And when asked about it, Jen Psaki said, yes, he drove through El Paso on a campaign stop.
Yeah,
it's like, this is
it's
not
really
going
funny.
to the border.
No, it's going to be good. I'm so glad we have Carnivore Bites, our podcast, because I think there's going to be a tipping point, and it's happening sooner rather than later, when, just like Jimmy Carter many, many, many years ago, they throw in the towel. And I think that's my prediction, and it's not anything very profound, that it's going to happen sooner rather than later. So moving on, we got woke corporate, and we got woke, it's still corporate, but the major sports entities, the NBA included, which is the wokest of all, led by some real geniuses. But it's really funny. They talk about free speech and all this wokeism, but when Enes Kazistar, who's from Eastern Europe, I believe, started protesting and putting on his shoes anti-Nike messages about their basic slave shops in China, he was benched. And there was another player on the Celtics that encountered a similar fate. So what is this, like, wokeism, when it really, I think it's corporate wokeism, because if it doesn't impact the bottom line or helps the bottom line, then go way over the top with wokeism. But when it cuts out a major market with 1.5 billion people, wokeism, all of a sudden, it kind of affects us. Maybe it's not that cool anymore. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this is something that's been going on for a while. And, he's from Turkey. He comes from a whole different culture, and he's seen what goes on when companies use slave labor, when, all of this stuff goes on. But the NBA wants to kowtow to China because they want the Chinese market. And Nike's the same way. Nike built, I don't know if build is the right, manufactures their shoes in China. So, of course, they don't want to hear that there's anything bad. And
yeah, but wait a second. Just interrupt just for 1 second. Let's talk about, like, the Nike example. They did this whole woke thing with, what's his name, the guy who took the knee from San Francisco. I forgot his name. But yeah, they couldn't be more woke. But how disingenuous when you're the company of wokeism, but you essentially are employing literally slave labor when people commit suicide, I'm talking Chinese, rather than endure what they have to endure. This whole corporate wokeism is a bunch of bullshit. It's all about propping up the bottom line. It's a facade.
Well, everything about woke is hypocritical. Woke is, we all have to accept different points of view unless you disagree with us, and then we're going to go after your head. Yes, in America, we all have to do this. Oh, it doesn't matter if they're torturing people in China. That's China. That's over there. The entire
yeah, but how about if it was Israel? Wait. How about if it was Israel?
Oh, if it was Israel doing this, they'd go after them. Put their heads on the chopping block. Because Israel,
because it's a small market. There's no
right.
The upside is more with the Palestinian side than the Israelis.
That's it.
Business.
This is about commercialism.
Exactly.
We want those 1.5 billion people buying our products, and to do that, we have to, kowtow to the Chinese government. And when people speak out against it, and they should. Everybody should be speaking out against China. They are guilty of massive human rights violations that we've just sort of ignored. They're the reason for the coronavirus.
Yeah, of course.
China needs to be reined in.
And Biden is not the administration to do that.
Well, no. I mean, come on. Jen Psaki referred to them as, like, we want them as as competition. It's like, no, this is not competition.
It's our enemy, genius.
This is, to take a line from Reagan, the new evil empire.
Hello, yeah, but these guys don't. Well, Biden doesn't get what ice cream he's going to do. I think
Yeah.
the biggest decision Biden makes every day is what he has for breakfast. Then he goes, takes a nap, and then it's what kind of dessert he's going to get. And there's other
I'm not even
people like
sure he makes those decisions.
You're probably right. And it's Susan Rice is a major player behind it, a failed diplomatic bureaucrat. She's one of the power players, among others, basically all from the Obama administration. That's why he's so adamant about campaigning for Democrats. He's so concerned about his legacy. And you brought up the point in previous shows that Biden is not an asset to
No,
Obama's legacy. It's a
Obama's
deficit.
legacy is gone. Trump dismantled most of it, and Biden has successfully dismantled the rest.
Agreed. Well, moving on, Alec Baldwin, one of the another Hollywood intelligentsia, basically had an unfortunate incident on the movie set. I think it's called Rust,
Rust.
and yeah, and he accidentally shot himself, but there's some carelessness involved, and according
No, no,
to more recent reports, that there may be involuntary manslaughter charges brought against the
well, no,
liberal
no.
icon.
Let's be clear. He didn't shoot himself. He shot the director, and he killed a woman.
Oh no,
This is
I didn't mean no. I
Yeah,
meant that. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
No,
I mean,
he killed someone, and yes, exactly.
this is he was playing around with the prop gun. He was not following any gun safety whatsoever. As a producer on this production, he cut the budget. He wanted to save money, so he hired incompetent people. This was not the first accident on the set. There were 3 other prop gun accidents prior to this. This is just the one that happened to kill somebody. So, yeah, I mean, this is at the very least reckless endangerment. This guy needs to go to jail.
Hopefully that will happen. And again, we talk about inconsistencies and irony. He's supposed to be again, one of the big woke icons and liberal icons in the media and in the entertainment world. But when it comes to his own, it's just like defunding the police and having, paid security. When it comes to his own fortune, he'll cut corners. If it was someone else, like someone in the Trump family, he would call them to task, would he not?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and let's not forget this guy's been a hypocrite for
Oh,
decades at this point. Going back to, remember when he was married to Kim Basinger and the message to his phone message to his daughter was leaked, where he was absolutely abusive to his daughter.
that was child abuse, by the way, not physical, but
Yes. Yeah, it
psychological
was
child abuse.
psychological abuse. Yes. This is the guy that said if George Bush won, if Donald Trump won, he was moving to Canada. You know what?
He's moving nowhere.
Let's just deport him at this point. Get him out of this country.
I agree. Him behind bars would be something to behold. I'm sure he'll fare
Yes.
well in prison. Yes. So Facebook, a company that is just encountering setback after setback, leaked documents. They're pissing off both liberals and conservatives, and their value as a company and as a brand is continuing to plummet.
It is. And they are planning a rebrand. So
Mm-hmm.
the company is no longer going to be Facebook. Facebook will simply be a product of I don't know what the new name is going to be, but Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp are all going to be products under this new name. Why? Because they don't want the Facebook name dragging them down anymore.
I would say you don't have to be a PhD in marketing to know that this is indicative of a company that's in real trouble. I mean, when you have to rebrand, that's great when things are going well, but no, this is a retrenching. This is a total defensive strategy, and I don't think it ends well. And thank God, because I hate Zuckerberg anyway.
Well, I mean, the platform itself is being split apart. I mean, first of all, everybody knows Facebook has been doing their best to sow discontent, because if you're angry and you're arguing, you stay on the platform and you see more ads. So we know that they've actively been trying to disintegrate civility in the name of their corporate profits. But they've also caught themselves in a catch-22, because conservatives do very well on Facebook. Conservative movements get lots of views on Facebook. But of course, Facebook is woke, liberal California company. They don't want to be promoting the liberal viewpoint, but they also don't want to get rid of it altogether. They want that controversy so that they can get more ad views. So they're really caught between a rock and a hard place, because they've put their own political ideology and their own desire for ad views and revenues ahead of their viewers. And let's be very clear about something with Facebook, Twitter, all of the social media companies. When you are on these platforms, you are not their customer. You are the product. Your data gets sold to their advertisers. The advertisers are the customers. The people using the platform are the product.
No question about it. I also think in the whole rebranding initiative, and I think also they're losing the prime demographic, which is young people. I believe they're ripe for a replacement. What that is, I don't know, but it could be a fragmentation, just like the three networks were 40 years ago. I think we're looking at a rebranding of the whole social media, but we'll wait and see about that. Bill O'Reilly predicts that McAuliffe will win in Virginia. If he is correct, he's a pretty smart guy. If he is correct, and this happened today, that is the shot heard round the world, is it not?
No. He did not predict McAuliffe would
I'm
win.
sorry. He predicted McAuliffe would lose.
Yes.
Sorry. I misspoke. No, I misspoke. I apologize. Yes, he believes that McAuliffe will lose the Virginia gubernatorial race. I think that is a shot heard around the world. Dr. Lotkin, what say you?
If McAuliffe loses, it is a massive shot, because not only has Virginia been a blue state for the past 12 years, especially statewide, the Democrats have thrown everything they have at this race. Again, we said earlier, you had Obama campaigning. You had both Jill and Joe Biden campaigning separately, I might add. You had Harris campaigning down there. They threw everything they had, and it keeps getting close. The race keeps getting closer and closer. Right now, I think it's actually, I mean, statistically, I know it's a dead heat because everything's within the margin of error. But I think even if you remove the margin of error, it's a dead heat at this point. It could go either way. Now, for the Democrats, this will be a major loss. Ironically, if McAuliffe wins, it means absolutely nothing.
It's a nothing burger.
Because next year when they have the midterm elections and you have all of these elections going, the Democrats are not going to be able to throw everything they have at any one election. So the resources that they're throwing at McAuliffe next year, that's going to be dissipated across hundreds of races. So if it's not enough for McAuliffe to win, it shows that they are going to get lambasted in the midterms.
That's why it is a shot heard around the world. I do question, I'd love your opinion. I'm sure our listeners would as well. I think Obama is still an asset. I believe McAuliffe had to have Biden, Kamala, and Jill Biden. Those are not he knows it's not. When you have Joe Biden on the stage talking about pre-K education should be really more focused or expanded to 3 and 4-year-olds, it's an embarrassment. But he has no choice but to have these clowns Obama's a different story, although his
Yeah.
star is not as bright as it once was. But no, that's not helping McAuliffe at all.
No. Well, Obama still has his following. He can still get out there. Now, his speech for McAuliffe was an absolute disaster, which actually surprised me because he was accusing the Republicans of race warfare and basically, setting all this aside. And meanwhile, while he's doing this, Harris and Biden are coming up with their gender equity issues. So, I mean, he literally showed he was out of touch, but he can still sell ice to Eskimos.
Oh no, he's the best salesman. I used to be in sales. There is no better salesperson in the universe than Obama. He paints himself as this stand-up guy, but he's the great divider in chief. He started many chasms that we still live with today. The Trump gets all the blame for it. He's definitely responsible for some, but the great divider in chief has a legacy that stands.
That was Obama. He like Biden, who Biden probably learned this from Obama, never accepted the blame for anything he did. There's still people I see on social media going, "Oh, there were no big scandals during the Obama years."
God.
It's like, really? The IRS went after Tea Party.
How about Fast
the
and
NSA?
Furious?
Yeah, Fast and Furious. The NSA hacked Angela Merkel's phone. The AP had their phone records illegally obtained by the FBI.
Well, Trump was spied on.
Yeah, Trump was spied on because they got a fake FISA warrant. So yeah, Obama was the one that weaponized government, and and the Democrats want people to think it was Trump. But moving on to Biden's campaigning for McAuliffe, as I understand it, McAuliffe did not request this. Jill Biden decided she would go and campaign. And then Joe decided, oh, Obama's campaigning there. My wife is campaigning there. I should campaign there. And nobody could talk him out of it. So he still does not realize how bad his approval ratings are, how much he is disliked. It actually came out, his approval ratings have fallen further and faster than any president in history.
And it will continue to do that. By prediction, he'll set new records. Well, the World Series, how ironic is this, Dr. Lotkin and our listeners? All-Star Game was moved because of wokeism, inspired in part and due measure by Coca-Cola, among others. And now the World Series is in Atlanta. Is there a God or not?
This is, I don't think this is irony. I think this is poetic justice and karma coming back to bite MLB in their ass. You have the Atlanta Braves playing the Houston Astros. Both states have passed voter protection laws. And these are the laws that MLB said, oh, no, we can't abide by this. However, they moved the All-Star Game to Denver, which actually has stricter voter laws than Georgia did.
It's all corporate wokeism. They don't give a shit about it.
This is poetic. This is poetic justice, and the big winners in this are the businesses around the Atlanta Stadium, because
many of them black.
Yes, many of them black-owned. These guys were screwed out of a ton of revenues when the All-Star Game was moved. Now they've got their shot to make it up.
Okay, moving on. The January 6th inquiry, pretty much a partisan endeavor, but it is a little troubling that there's been some leaking and discussion points about that there are meetings in the White House, about the pre-coordination. If that's true, I think that has ramifications. And also Steve Bannon, the former chief of staff, is under the microscope in that and could
Yeah,
be indicted, I believe.
Steve Bannon is under the microscope, but you also have to remember that Steve Bannon hadn't been chief of staff for about
Oh,
2
no, agreed.
years at the time of January 6th. I think it's the Democrats themselves that are leaking these because they have nothing. The FBI has already investigated, and let's be clear, this is the Justice Department and FBI under the Biden administration that investigated Donald Trump and said he had nothing to do with January 6th. So Congress is going out. Why? Well, because, the Mueller report said he didn't collude with Russia, but that didn't stop the Democrats from from impeaching Trump and from going on all of the news shows saying, yes, he colluded, despite the fact that the investigation clearly said he didn't. We have the same situation here. The FBI has already cleared Donald Trump. The Democrats are going after him. Why? Because Donald Trump is the boogeyman. Donald Trump has gotten so into the Democrats' heads, they can't think about anything else. Case in point, Biden's speech, campaigning for McAuliffe. He mentioned Trump 25 times. Trump has nothing to do with this election, but they can't get Trump out of their head. He is the Democratic boogeyman.
No question about it, and that's their big rallying cry. But also, I think it sent shivers down their spine because it started sending shockwaves in traditionally Democratic constituencies like Hispanics and blacks. They are scared to death of Trump because he could have blown it all up if he didn't blow it up himself, which he did. And speaking of Trump,
no,
go ahead.
No, Hispanics and blacks are not scared of Trump. In fact,
no. I said the Democrats are scared to death.
Oh, okay.
Because he's making inroads in traditionally Democratic strongholds,
okay. Yes,
including Jews, blacks, and Hispanics. And they're scared to death. When these people leave the reservation, they're screwed because they've lost Middle America. That's all they've got besides illegal aliens.
Yeah, they've lost Middle America. The Hispanics are switching parties. Blacks are switching parties. It's amazing. There are border towns in Texas, major Hispanic strongholds that have been Democrat for years, that have, in the last elections, been going Republican because the Democrats have screwed up the border. They've screwed up the economy. And, of course, Biden can't accept that all of these problems were caused by him, so he's got to pull out the boogeyman. Oh, it's all Trump's fault. Trump.
Yeah, that's where you do agree, though. That's wearing very thin.
Oh, yes.
It's not even relevant anymore. Only the dumbest of the dumb, the biggest ideologues would still latch on to that. But anyone with an IQ above 70 is like, okay, come on, enough is enough. Everyone knows this is Biden's screw up, and that's the end of it.
And you're seeing both Bill Maher and Jon Stewart have come out and said, you know what, we have to stop treating Trump like the boogeyman. Let's move on. Let's deal with issues. So, yeah, big vocal Democrats are coming out and saying enough is enough. This isn't about Trump. But, again, Biden can't accept the blame for all of his screw-ups. And let's face it, he has made more of a disaster faster and so much worse than anybody expected him to be able to do so.
There should be a solid bronze statue right at the White House. The biggest screw. No one, if you decided to screw up everything he has the reverse Midas touch. Everything he touches.
Yeah.
And actually, Obama said that. He said something like, never underestimate Biden's ability to screw things up.
Yep.
And speaking of screw ups, that's
become a famous Obama quote, and we're seeing that he was so right about that.
And that was a Biden that had some cognitive skills. A lot, no, but had some grip on reality. Now you're looking at a depleted moron, which is even scarier. And speaking of Biden, looks like inflation, I call it Biden inflation, is the highest ever according to the Dallas authorities in terms of economic indicators.
Yeah, there was
The
talk
Fed and
yesterday
the
that
Fed and the yes.
yeah, they were talking yesterday that Thanksgiving dinners, the cost is going to be at least double what it was last year. And if you, I love this, if you're one of those woke liberals that must have your organic turkey, those organic turkeys are going for between $80 and $90. It is
You know, when it hits middle,
absolutely amazing.
the wokes, I love it because they're the people I blame for all this. You know, oh, Trump, the orange hair, he's bad, he's mean, he's not a nice guy. And you were, with all your great degrees and your, all your accomplishments and your, at least belief in yourself that you're an intellectual elite, voted for someone that is basically 3 steps ahead of dementia. So the joke's on you. I do think this Thanksgiving, when middle America gets their Bidenflation turkeys, it's going to further, you talk about the fastest screw up in history. His ratings now they're at 36. I predict by Christmas it could be below 30. That is unprecedented.
It wouldn't surprise me at this point, especially with the supply chains being screwed up and people not being able to get what they want for Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's going to be laid at Biden's feet. And I mean, and the hits keep coming because Janet Yellen said earlier this week she expects this inflation to continue at least until second half next year, which means this inflation is going to keep rising right up until the midterm elections. And guess who's going to take the brunt of it?
Yeah, when she says it's going to be, until 2022, it's going to be a lot longer than that. That's what they're telling you now. It's
probably
a slow release. Yes, of course. YouTube, speaking of our esteemed president, deletes rapper Bison Gray's "Let's Go Brandon," which is a parody because NBC Sports covered for him at a NASCAR event because they are going "F-U Biden." I think that's hysterical.
It's hysterical, and what's even funnier is that after they did that, "Let's Go Brandon" became the best-selling single on Apple iTunes.
That's the great note. I'm so glad you mentioned that because, okay, YouTube is YouTube, whatever, okay? Yes, I was remiss in saying that. On iTunes, forget the Rolling Stones, forget the Beatles, #1. Something going on or not? Hello?
That's it. Yes, "Let's Go Brandon" became the best-selling song on iTunes, beating out Adele's new songs. And there was a lot of press, and I'm a big fan of Adele. She's got a great voice. She does great music. I find it hysterical that in all of these attempts to censor, all it does is keep pushing it further and further. So it was, "Let's Go Brandon" didn't take that top spot until YouTube banned it. So great. So now people aren't listening to it for free. Now they've actually bought it.
And he's probably going to come out with a spinoff. So on a much more serious note, again, our screw up in chief, the latest estimates are 450 Americans left behind in Afghanistan. If there was not a corporate liberal media, it would be, they'd have the countdown clock every night, every evening, all day, every day. But it's kind of, they give it a little short shift, but really not the attention it deserves. That is dereliction of duty. It was totally needless. He's incompetent and he's senile.
It is absolutely a dereliction of duty on the part of the media. And to put this in perspective, back during the Carter administration, when we had the hostages in Iran, ABC News created Nightline
Absolutely, I was there.
To have a daily update on what was going on. And that was what? a dozen people, maybe a little more. I don't remember the exact
It
number.
was less than
This was
15.
Yeah, but this is 450 people still there after the administration said there were only 100 or so people left when they pulled out. So not only have they been lying to the American public over and over again, there's still 450 Americans left in Afghanistan after the Taliban has publicly said that they are going to pay the families of suicide bombers in both cash and land to go after the Taliban's enemies, which, let's face it, that's us. So
Yeah,
not
so
only did we surrender to the Taliban, we left hostages behind in much greater numbers than Biden wants to admit to.
And again, we get to the deflator in chief. I'm talking about approval that could further pile. I'm talking about a Merry Christmas for the Biden legacy. And I think it's going to be a one and done, not one term, 1 year. And ending our tragic assault on our esteemed president, Rick Scott, the senator from Florida, basically came with no real big revelations that Biden is the Republicans' best asset. How can you dispute that, Dr. Lotkin?
I can't. Biden, again, is the gift that keeps on giving. Remember, Biden has not gotten any of his agenda passed, and none of it has had anything to do with the Republicans. The Republicans have been sitting back and watching. He's not even talking to the Republicans, and he can't get these things past his own party. So, yeah,
but I think okay, a month ago, his leverage is exponentially declining because if you're Manchin or, besides AOC or those, Taliban nutcases in the Democratic Party, if you're someone that has a constituency that's actually normal, you're moving away from this guy. There's no leverage here that join the team or not. What team? It's like the Titanic crew. Come aboard. Come aboard.
I mean, remember,
what, are you crazy?
Remember, Joe Manchin has to answer to his constituents. And Biden lost West Virginia by 10 points. And that was before he screwed everything up. So do you really think the voters of West Virginia are going to congratulate Manchin if he caves into this?
If he goes along with his shit, because there's a lot of articles, because I always monitor what's going on for this show, for the podcast, that there's indications that, he basically a liberal in sheep's clothing, so to speak, that he was playing both sides. If he capitulates to anything over or close to $2 trillion, he's finished, and deservingly so.
Yeah, I've seen there's been a lot of rumors that both Manchin and Sinema have been placated and they're going to go along with this. I think it's important to note that none of this information has actually come from Manchin or Sinema, so it could just be the Democrats saying, "Oh yes, we're close to a deal. We're close to a deal." According to them, they've been close to a deal for 2 months already.
Well, Dr. Lotkin, great show. So much to cover. But, again, I've been around the block and I've never seen a political environment like this. And I've never seen gross incompetency. Biden makes Jimmy Carter look like Winston Churchill and George Washington combined.
Oh, yeah, because for all of Jimmy Carter's faults, there was never any doubt that Jimmy Carter was a patriot. Jimmy Carter was doing what he felt was the best thing for the country. Biden, you don't get that feeling. Biden has actively dismissed half the country. Oh, we don't need them. We can do everything without the Republicans. So, I mean, there's big differences between Biden and Carter, and all of the pluses go to Carter.
Absolutely, and we'll end with that is an astute observation. Having been around at that time, Carter, he made some blunders, he made some gaps, he made some mistakes, Number one, he was totally cognizant of what was going on. He was a very intelligent man. Made some mistakes, but a very intelligent man, and was in the end a patriot. I agree with you 100%. I do not get that from President Biden. First of all, I don't even know that he knows what's going on, so I don't even know that he's in touch. But the people that are pulling the strings for him are not patriots. They could give a shit about America.
No, they're after their own power and nothing else.
Well, Dr. Lopkin, that concludes another edition of Carnivore Bites. We'll be back next week. And how can our listeners access this growing media empire?
You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcast, as well as the Carnivore Radio website. You can also find us on the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. And if you're interested in following things between our podcasts, you can follow me at Eric Lopkin on Instagram, where we've been growing there too with more and more coverage of Carnivore Radio.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. Thank our listeners. Great show, Dr. Lopkin. We'll be back next week.
We'll see you then.